From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. Today is a very special episode of RoadSigns, where we're celebrating the launch of our updated quarterly print installment, Calibrate, formerly known as the Equipment and Maintenance Update. We wanted to take this time to highlight one of the topics that will be found in the pages of Calibrate, namely tire inflation technology. In this episode, we'll learn more about the two prominent system platforms, TPMS, tire pressure monitoring systems, and ATIS, automatic tire inflation systems. And as with every RoadSigns episode, we'll set out to answer the following questions. What factors should fleets consider when investing in systems like TPMS and ATIS? How has tire inflation technology helped address tire repair and maintenance more effectively? And where do these systems take the industry in the future? We are very fortunate to have a guest who can help us out in this subject, and that guest is Matt Wilson, General Manager of the Controls Business Unit and Trailer Commercial Vehicle Systems for Hendrickson, based out of my hometown of Canton, Ohio. Welcome to RoadSigns, Matt.
Good afternoon, Mike. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you on. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, before we get into this in depth, can you just give some of our viewers, I'll say most of our viewers are familiar with TPMS and ATIS technology, but for those who aren't, could you give a brief explanation of these platforms and how they operate?
Sure, no problem. So TPMS is very similar to what a lot of people have in their cars. Most modern cars have these, actually all modern US cars. It's band-aided. But TPMS stands for, as you mentioned, tire pressure monitoring systems. These systems can monitor the pressure that's in the tire and report out warnings or tell the operator what the current tire pressure is. They are really not capable of actually putting air into the tires. And that's the main difference between a TPMS system and an ATIS system. Automatic tire inflation systems, ATIS, are active inflation systems. So not only can they tell and see what pressure is currently in the tires, but they can also add air when required.
Having those two particular systems in a fleet shop really helps the efficiency of that shop when it comes to tire repair. When fleets are deciding what type of platform to get, what are those factors when choosing one over the other? What are the pros and cons of that?
From a maintenance perspective, the automatic tire inflation system that actively maintains your tires really is a lot more beneficial than TPMS. And the reason for that is if you just have a TPMS system, even when you find a problem with a tire, then the operator has to seek out a service location or find somewhere to get air to refill that tire. So in most instances, at least for the commercial trucking industry, if you can have an active inflation system, that's far more beneficial. The problem is on the tractor side, because of drive axles and other configurations related to the equipment, it's very difficult to do an automatic tire inflation system. So you don't see a lot of those on trucks and tractors. But on the trailer side, it's much easier because the axles are hollow. So typically, the trailer users will opt for an ATIS system as opposed to TPMS, just because it eliminates a lot of labor and maintenance related to checking and filling tires.
So basically, I guess in the layman way, TPMS is kind of centered on monitoring, tire pressure and other details concerning the tire, while ATIS is more of a proactive measure when inflation is low, the platform begins to work. So, I mean, is that kind of how those two are explained? I mean, those two work? I mean, am I getting that right?
No, I think that's a perfect way to say it. So I would say that TPMS is more passive and ATIS is active in terms of actually maintaining and putting air into the tires.
So, I mean, would you say that ATS technology really helps in the fuel economy for a fleet you're dealing with? I mean, not just one, but 10 or 100 units out there. And especially, tire repair and maintenance adds up when you get those collection of so many fleet units. So, I mean, how does ATIS go into that fuel economy cost for fleets, which is very cumbersome on its own?
Sure, that's a great question. And actually, the FMCSA has done numerous studies over the years, and they've been able to prove that adding an ATIS system to your fleet will save as much as 1.5% in fuel costs. And the reason for that is underinflated tires obviously have more rolling resistance than a properly inflated tire. So by keeping your tires properly inflated, you actually see improvements in fuel economy.
You had discussed, trailer efficiency, how ATIS is very beneficial for the trailer sides of the truck. Just kind of going into the improvement of safety. I mean, ATIS really has a part to play into that. But could you elaborate more on the TPMS technology when it comes to improving safety overall?
Sure. Here at Hendrickson, we basically only sell on the trailer side an ATIS system. We're working on a couple of different products that will expand our portfolio to also provide TPMS. So for sure, my knowledge much more related to the ATIS portion of tire maintenance. But for us, we see big safety improvements when you equip a trailer with ATIS because of the fact that most of tire related failures on the road are due to inflation problems. And as you know, when you're driving down the highway and you see, portions of tires that have, fallen off or cap separations or things like that, most of those incidents are related to low tire pressure. So having an ATIS system like Tire Max prevents a lot of those road issues, which eliminates debris, prevents breakdowns along the side of the road, which can cause traffic jams and collisions and things of that nature. So we definitely feel that there's a safety component related to ATIS systems.
Oh, most definitely. Along with safety, you definitely have, and it's been in the news quite a bit with just greenhouse gas regulations and just its effect on the trucking industry as a whole. I mean, what type of impact, if any, would it have on just tire inflation technology, those regulations? And how would Hendrickson as a company, when using that ATIS technology, how would that be impacted if at all?
Yeah, I think we already saw a little bit of the GHG impact on our business as it relates to tire inflation because it was slated to happen, a year or two ago, and then kind of got postponed at the last minute. But because of that, a lot of the fleets were already trying to prepare for the day that they may need to add tire inflation systems to meet the GHG requirements. So we already saw a pretty significant increase in our take rate for tire inflation systems on our suspensions based on the possibility of GHG coming onto the scene. So even though it didn't really happen a couple of years ago, I think it's probably at some point going to become a regulation again, or have to be implemented at these trailer OEMs. I really believe that a lot of them have already seen most of the adoption of tire inflation systems based on GHG because it was already slated to happen.
The world is moving again. Penske never stopped. They've been working hard, monitoring every mile driven, every wrench turned, and every shipment delivered, giving them unique insight on managing the most challenging of demands. That includes identifying and fixing hidden stress points in supply chains before they become a problem. Visit gopenske.com to see how Penske's practical innovation and customized solutions can help you adapt and move forward with confidence.
Being that inflation technology, it's made important strides in the last 10 years or so, and it's being and as the years go on, it's becoming more widely implemented. I mean, speaking of ATIS technology, in addition to the use of smartphones, and we can kind of touch upon that in the communication side of things with this technology, of fleet shops and managers, and reporting. I guess going the other way with truckers reporting to managers. The situations going on with their tires, with their sets of tires. Can you just speak about just how this technology has evolved in the last 10 years? I mean, in addition to smartphone apps, what have you seen with the technology, and what are you most amazed about when it comes to the wide implementation of it?
Sure. I've been intimately involved with tire inflation systems since around 2005. My position here at Hendrickson, that's the product that I'm responsible for. And the biggest change that I've seen since the time that I've been involved with tire inflation is the advent of systems that can both inflate tires and then also equalize across wheel positions, and then relieve overinflated tires if that becomes a problem. So, originally, the very original tire inflation systems could handle underinflated tires by providing air to the tire, but really couldn't address overinflated conditions or mismatched duals. And so, with the advent of systems that can do that, here at Hendrickson, ours is called TireMax Pro. That system allows you to maintain better control of your tire pressures because it can not only inflate your tires when they're low, but if your tires become overinflated, it can respond to that condition as well.
Matt, I was just realizing during this interview that I seem to be pitting TPMS and ATIS against each other as a binary choice that fleet shops would make. And I understand that's an incorrect assessment. I mean, but they can work together perfectly within a fleet shop. That's correct.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're correct that TPMS systems many of the ones that are available on the market today can be integrated or added to a tire inflation system. And actually, that's something that Hendrickson has been looking at right now. We recognize that as trailers become more intelligent and smart trailers seem to be all the rage in the industry right now, that there's more requests for additional data and information from the trailers, from fleet operators all the time. So Hendrickson's actually working on an integrated TPMS system that basically will install with our TireMax. We call it the Watchman wheel end sensor. It's going to be available later this year or early next year. And what it does is it takes advantage of some of the components that we already have to install for tire inflation systems, like tire hoses, and it gives us really good access to the tire pressure. So what we've done is we've developed a TPMS system that basically integrates with our automatic tire inflation system.
Now, in launching that, in the pending launching of that product, have you spoken to fleets just for feedback when developing this product? I mean, did you learn things from the features of this product that came from issues that fleet techs have concerning tire inflation?
Sure, we're always talking to fleets and end customers. We want to try to understand what their needs are. And again, I think that as we talk to fleets on a daily basis, almost everybody is looking for more information and more data, particularly the large fleets, because they have so many pieces of equipment out in the field. It's very difficult for them to keep track of their tire condition and everything that's going on, and making sure that those trailers are ready to pull when it's time to be picked up by a tractor. So everybody is very, very interested in gathering more data just about the readiness condition of trailers. So we feel that this product really kind of hits that spot of the market directly.
It's with tire inflation technology, it really is all about the data. One of the things that I would like to ask you, Matt, before we head off is, first of all, I want you to put your analyst hat on, and just when it comes to TPMS and ATIS technology, where do you see it heading in the next 5 or 10 years?
No, that's a really good question too. We believe that one of the places that it's going to head is load-based tire inflation. And I know a number of people are working on those types of systems, including us here at Hendrickson. But as you probably know, with a heavy-duty trailer, the range of tire pressures for any given tire spec are pretty wide. So depending on the axle load that you actually have in your trailer, or that you anticipate on your trailer, has a big impact on what the tire pressure setting is. And so it's kind of an issue for fleets because they have to anticipate and be prepared for the fully loaded condition. So typically what a fleet would do is choose a tire pressure that is equal to or greater than the minimum pressure that they would require for their maximum load. So when they're fully loaded, if it's 100 PSI, then that's what they run their trailers at. But the reality is a lot of fleets run a lot of lightly loaded or empty miles, particularly if you're an LTL fleet or something like that, where you do a lot of pickups. So a lot of the time spent on the road might be at much less than fully loaded conditions. So there's a big advantage if you could have a system that was smart enough to automatically change the tire pressure based on the load on the trailer. And so again, this is something that Hendrickson's been working on for a while. I think it's going to be new on the market. We're planning to launch that product as well this year. It's called TireMax Pro LB, and it's a load-based tire inflation system that does exactly that. So when you change the load on the trailer, the inflation system recognizes the change in load and automatically changes the tire pressure to optimize what the pressure in the tires should be based on that specific load.
One of the things that I also wanted to talk to you, Matt, about was just the evolution of the technology of tire inflation. Do you feel that the industry as a whole is getting more acceptive of that technology? Meaning the technology that is used is becoming more intuitive, so more drivers will, I guess, for lack of a better term, accept that technology to have their tech shops running more smoothly.
Absolutely, Mike. I think the driver there has just been the adoption rate of tire inflation in general, particularly in trailers. We believe it's hard to get exact numbers, but it's probably around 70% of all new trailers are built with tire inflation at this point. So it's almost every driver has been exposed to it. Every technician has been exposed to it in some form or fashion. So it definitely has become something that's almost standard equipment on most of the heavy duty trailers that are in the U.S. at this point.
We've been speaking with Matt Wilson, General Manager of the Controls Business Unit and Trailer Commercial Vehicle Systems for Hendrickson. Glad to have you on this very special edition of Road Signs, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate the time.
The world is moving again. Penske never stopped. They've been working hard, monitoring every mile driven, every wrench turned, and every shipment delivered, giving them unique insight on managing the most challenging of demands. That includes identifying and fixing hidden stress points in supply chains before they become a problem. Visit gopenske.com to see how Penske's practical innovation and customized solutions can help you adapt and move forward with confidence.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original questions. What factors should fleets consider when investing in systems like TPMS and ATIS? How has tire inflation technology helped address tire repair and maintenance more effectively? And where do these systems take the industry in the future? First, a big thank you to Matt Wilson for coming on to the podcast. As Matt has pointed out, while tire pressure monitoring and automatic tire inflation systems are very much in favor with most fleet shops, the issue of use comes down to viability and preference. With TPMS a more passive and information-based system, and ATIS a more proactive one, some fleet shops benefit from having both platforms on hand. The return on investment is clearly seen in the labor and maintenance cost, fuel economy, safety improvement, and better preventive maintenance. These systems have grown rapidly in the last 10 years, and as Matt suggested, there is still much innovation to come. Also, be sure to check out our new equipment and maintenance quarterly, Calibrate, coming soon in July, and Transport Topics. If you enjoyed this episode of Road Signs, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the Road Signs team, or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Fries. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Road Signs. Until then, I'm Michael Fries. Thank you for listening.